So today I will take you through how to use the Microsoft accessibility tools and just how they might support you in your role. My name is Martin. I am one of the trainers at Turn It On, and my background is UK education, working from primary through to secondary. Because we're a Microsoft partner, one of the things that we're going to offer you today is the ability to get a code from us for completing today's training around accessibility tools. And that code can be redeemed on the new Microsoft Learn Education Center from Microsoft. Recently, Microsoft switched from the Microsoft Education Center to the Microsoft Learn Education Center. It's a new platform. It's got much greater depth of materials. But as far as CPD is concerned, it's a very, very powerful resource to be able to go along, find courses that are relevant to you and build your own learning pathway. If you've not been there previously, don't worry, we'll give you the link to Microsoft Learn, or you can open up a web browser and you can find it now. The code that we will give you at the end of the session, we'll share the numbers and the letters with you, and then also talk you through where to go to redeem that code. As I've said, you've got individual courses or learning pathways built up from courses. If you do complete 2 or more courses, you'll gain enough points or certifications to make you a Microsoft Innovative Educator, and the course code that you're redeeming today will be sufficient as a custom code for accessibility tools to become an MIE. And if you suddenly find this is something you really like, you think it's a benefit to you or the colleagues you work with, or maybe you're in an academy trust and you are sharing it with other schools, then you can get people to study to become a Microsoft Innovative Educator expert. It's one step further. It's about a year's worth of commitment, but you pop in an application and then you'll be able to access the Microsoft network of other like-minded people trying to achieve similar things with technology and making a positive change, not just in the classroom, but across the whole school or college. As I've said, that code will be available at the end of this session, and if you're watching this back as a recording, don't worry, the code will remain live so you can still redeem it afterwards as well. Back to today, we're going to have a look at a selection of the accessibility tools from Microsoft. This isn't all of them by a long stretch. There are others, but what we're going to do is showcase the ones that are the most accessible, no pun intended, as far as getting into technology, even for staff that are a little bit technophobic and aren't quite sure about using technology themselves. They'll feel that they can dip right into these, but also that have that universal appeal across the school, whether it's working with other staff as colleagues or whether it is working with learners in the classroom. We'll have a look at Immersive Reader. We'll also have a look at some of the other tools that link in with Office 365 in the wider Microsoft 365 suite, and also tools that are in Windows 10 or Windows 11 if you've moved on to Windows 11. As I've said, if you have any questions or you're already using something, it's really good to hear from you and how you are using these tools. So please feel free to add comments into the chat and I'll come back and have a look at those as we progress through. So you're not necessarily meant to read that. The slide on the right-hand side of that slide is available on the page that you will get from this slide deck, which is about Microsoft accessibility tools and just how they're trying to support all different learning needs. Regardless, there is something there that will help you. And the philosophy behind this is to try and create an inclusive classroom where everybody can succeed, but also it fosters independence. It develops resilience and that growth mindset that we're looking for, but it's very much about giving you a even more inclusive environment. But on the flip side of that, as a educator, it's about reducing your workload. And as you'll see from some of the tools that we're going to show you, you can create something once and then they can be adapted for the individual depending on their needs. So Microsoft have a philosophy, and it is that they recognize and that they design for inclusivity, and then they work with educational specialists. This isn't something that Microsoft dreamt up. They look to solve the problem. What they do is they go and speak to people in schools globally, and they ask them what they're doing and ask them what they need. And then they work with them to try and develop technology that will benefit all. And then it's about learning from that as it goes into use and adapting it and bringing diversity to the set of skills that you can offer, and also the set of tools that you can offer to bring people together and engage them in whatever the purpose is. There is a roadmap, and it's kept by somebody called Mike Folsom. It looks a bit like a periodic table. So down the left-hand side, it's got all of the different features that you might find in the accessibility tools. And then going across the rows, it tells you which of the Office 365 or M365 apps that you will find them in. And increasingly, it's beginning to be a case that you will find a lot of the accessibility tools across as many of the core platforms as there is. The promoting independence in learning, it's all around all sorts of disabilities and learning needs. So regardless of the needs of the students you work with, the young adults, the younger pupils, there's going to be something out of the tools that we look at today that will be a takeaway from this session that you can go and put into practice and you can use to hopefully unlock some more doors for people. So thinking about the inclusive classroom, and although it's titled Inclusive Classroom, there really is a chance that you can use these beyond the classroom and across with parents if you're trying to engage them, also with governors or trustees, and as I said, the wider staff. So if we begin with reading, there's something called Immersive Reader. Now, Immersive Reader, it was made by Dyslexia, and that organization worked quite closely and were the leading developers with Microsoft of this platform. They were the catalyst to getting things started. Immersive Reader itself, and we'll look at it next, can do several things, whether it's reading text out loud or customizing that text so that it's more visible, or changing the way that the text lays out to highlight different items in it, or even having things like dictionaries that pop up so that it's just more visible than a piece of dense text. So let me jump over a moment and I will share my other screen with you. So today I'm using the Edge browser and I'm using everything online. So you don't need to have any of this software installed. If you have restrictions on your device from your school or college, don't worry. All you need to do is go to a web browser. So as I said, I'm using Edge from Microsoft, but you could use Google Chrome, you could use Firefox. It really doesn't matter as long as it's one of the modern browsers. And then you go to www.office.com and you just simply log in with your Office 365 account. That will be the email that you use for your Outlook, and then also your password that you normally pop in. And you as a member of staff more than likely will go to Outlook online, but pupils and students often land here. There's a chance you may land here on the Office 365 landing page. Just go to the app launcher in the top corner, and all the apps you need will either be pinned here, or if you go down to the all apps list, every single app that we're covering today will be available to you in that list. If something doesn't appear, it's likely that your account hasn't been given a certain type of license by your organization, and you'll need to go back to your IT admins and ask them to assign you a different license or a different privilege. But 90% of what I'm going to show you today is available on the free entry-level licensing, and there's no requirement to spend any more money. It will just be there. And it's one of the philosophies that Microsoft want to have, is that they open this up so that education can use it without any additional costs. What we will have a look at first is Immersive Reader. Immersive Reader is across all different platforms, whether you're using Teams, OneNote, Forms, Word, and it's also available in non-Microsoft software as well. So today I'm going to go into Teams, but you don't have to be just in Teams. You could be in absolutely anything, and you'll look for a certain icon, and the icon itself is really distinctive and really easy to find. So I'm going to go into one of my class teams, and I'm going to go into one of my class notebooks, my OneNote class notebooks. And here we go. In OneNote class notebook, I've got some text, and at the moment that text is pretty dense. Let me see if I can find an example of something that's been produced by me. I'll just open up my collaboration space and go into English. Let's see where I go to my teachers only section instead and go to English. So we might have an extended writing task, and we've got one here on the Sumner. So this is stimulus there, questions, and then they would read the text. And what you can do is you can use lots of different tools in OneNote class notebook, but you can use Immersive Reader. One of the other things that you can use before we go and look at Immersive Reader, if you just want to capture text on the page, one of the barriers could be being able to type. You might have a physical disability, which means you can't type, or there may be a reason that the keyboard just isn't an accessible thing for you, and all it does is frustrate you, annoy you, and that becomes a barrier. Well, you can use the dictate tool here, and the dictate tool is here in OneNote. It's over here in Word. It's in lots of different software, and if you press it, and it will listen to you, and whatever you're saying out loud will then appear as text on the screen, so that you don't have to use a keyboard. So all of a sudden, that frustration of someone who could be a really prolific writer, but actually they just can't write it down, well, that doesn't have to be a problem for them anymore. Use dictate. Also, dictate something that can be enabled in Windows 10 and Windows 11 in the accessibility settings as well, so it's also a useful tool to have. If we go in to OneNote class notebook, sorry, I'm going to just go across. What you can do is, when you want a bit more time, have a look across different tabs. But if you go to the View tab, in here is Immersive Reader. So what Immersive Reader does is it has a look at the page you're using. Let me just expand that and get rid of the clutter here. If you want to get more page space, you can shut down the sections, and then you've got a whole page to use as a learner. And I tend to use OneNote class notebook as my board software, and I author straight into it. But because I've captured everything jointly with the pupils and the students I'm working with, it also acts as a resource that they can get to when they're outside of school. So it improves access from anywhere. But as I said, cutting down workload is really important. So you might produce this as a worksheet. You might have printed out copies as well as a digital copy. You might just have the digital copy on the board, and all of your pupils have got a copy on paper. But then if they are using it electronically, they could have a laptop or a tablet, and they press the Immersive Reader button, and all of a sudden it strips away all the busyness. And what it does is it gives you a minimized version of the text that was on screen. It will give you tips the first time you come in, so it will take you through where different things are until you say, I've got it. You can, in the voice settings, choose to have a female or male voice. You can also have it read slower. There's the tortoise, or the hare, it's faster. When you've got it at a comfort level that suits you, all you need to do is press play. And it will read that text out. But as you can see, it's highlighted as to the words that are being read. And it, again, increases the accessibility of the text, because if you as a learner have the barrier as the text is not something you can decipher, it's not something you can engage with, and you're not in English, you're in another lesson, maybe you're really passionate scientist, but you can't engage with the text that's in the textbook, you could do that. And we'll show you in a little bit how to get the text out of a textbook and bring it into a OneNote or another program from Office 365. In Immersive Reader, you've got three options up on the top. You've got text preferences, grammar options, and reading preferences. If you went to the text preferences initially, if you were visually impaired, what you could do is change the size of the text on screen. Now, you are changing this just for you as an individual. It's not amending the original. That still stays there. And you could have 30 pupils in a class all doing this individually to suit their own styles. And it means that you've produced this resource once as a teacher, but they're all adapting it. So I might need a larger font. So I can drag that up and it's in 72. That works really well. Well, Calibri as a font doesn't work for me. I need something that looks a bit more like handwriting. So I'm going to change it over to be Comic Sans. And because I'm visually impaired, I might need a pale yellow background, or there's more options here to give you more colors. I might need a pale green background. And now the words and the letters come out from the page, whereas with a white background, I couldn't see them. You can additionally decide to have it formatted as the text was originally, and this isn't a particularly good example as there's such a small amount of text, or you can turn the formatting off. And for the purpose of today, I'll leave the formatting on. But if you're dealing with a big paragraph, it's something to play around with. So those are the text preferences. What you could do then is go to grammar options. You can have words split into syllables, and as you can see, you've got the dots there to break the words into syllables. But you could also say, look, I'm interested in nouns and verbs today, so I'm going to have my nouns, verbs, and maybe adjectives as well. All I've got is nouns in this example. They're all toggled on, so they would show up. You can change the colors that are used. So again, if you don't have a color there that works for you, you can change the colors around, and you can also label them. So if you're getting a lot of those colors in, you can have an N for noun or an ADJ for adjective, and that will all be labeled up in the text, so you know exactly what you're looking at. Or if you don't want them on at all, and you just want syllables, then you toggle it also off. That's particularly good in primary if you want pupils to be independent in checking things like the SPAG tasks if you're in the UK, or if you just want them to analyze a piece of text. The last options in Immersive Reader is the reading preferences. So you can have a line focus. So if you're dyslexic and there's too much text on the page and it's all just flying around, you can have it as a line focus. So when the reader reads, it will shift the line that's being read. And you can see that that shifts, but you can also move up and down with the arrows on the side, so you can scroll through the text to suit you. Picture dictionary isn't available in this document, but what you could do is you could apply the picture dictionary. Let me see if I can come out and find another example. You could apply the picture dictionary so that the words are pictorial as well as being just written words. So if I went to, let's go to a science document here, maybe science of racing cars. Let's turn Immersive Reader on and go back into reading preferences. Picture dictionaries toggled to on. You can turn it off, but when I click a word, I can read the word individually, but I can see the pictorial version. So I don't need separate software anymore. This is all in Immersive Reader, and it's available across the whole of Office 365. So wherever my pupils or students go, they get a similar experience. And when they use this tool, they find it's available in different places. Even better than that, if you've got EAL pupils or additional language needs in the class, you can have your different languages supported. So there's 60 languages at the moment, but it might be that I need to have, let's say, French, because I've got some French speaking children that are joining me, could be on an exchange. It might be that they've come to stay permanently in the area. So you could have it translated by word, or you can have the whole document. If you're going for the whole document, it will automatically show it in French, but you can toggle back to the original. So it promotes you learning and translating back into the language of English, if that's your original language, but you can set your original language as well. Or additionally, if you are clicking on the word, you can have the word read to you in French, or you can have the word read to you in English. And if you want to switch it off again, all you do is turn off the whole document, and you could have it by word. And again, that will then show up there as your word. And it allows the individual pupil or student to pick just which part they want to use, what's relevant for them. And they can have that applied on a computer or a tablet in front of them, while everybody else gets on and uses a resource in a different way, or uses it just in the way that you prepared it originally. But for you as a teacher, all of a sudden, the need to start differentiating and preparing that in several different ways, that's taken away, and you can concentrate on supporting learners in the classroom and let the technology do some of the heavy lifting for you. Before we move on, has anybody got any questions? I'm just going to have a check in the chat. Anybody used Immersive Reader at all in their schools, had any success with it, and they want to share anything in today's session? Just give you a second in case anyone's about to type a question. As I said, Immersive Reader, completely free, included for all pupil accounts, all staff accounts on the free licensing, and it will just pop up there. You need to look, as you can see for the icon, the little book with the speaker next to it is the icon that will always depict Immersive Reader. So wherever you see that, you'll be able to dip in, pick that up and use it. If there aren't any questions or anything anyone wants to share at this point, I am going to swap over and jump back over to the slides, and we'll carry on through. So as we said, you've got the ability to, let me just double check. Yes, that has shown up. You've got the ability to find it in lots of different platforms, whether it's using your email for Outlook, it's even in Minecraft Education Edition, and it will be only something that gets further expansion from Microsoft. It's part of the core accessibility suite that most people find really easy to use, but also extremely helpful. Microsoft haven't been precious about it. What they've done is they've opened it up to various software partners. So if you were going to Oxford University Press, and let's say you're using something like MyMaths, well, it's in there as well. So you'll find it embedded in lots of other pieces of software that you might use. So that makes it even easier again for you as a teacher, but also for the pupils or the students that you're working with. Now, we spoke during that session there about getting information in from a book in your classroom. Now, one of the really useful apps that you can get on Android and iOS is Office Lens. Office Lens is a bit hard to demonstrate, so what I've got is a screen capture of how it works, but you download and install it. It's free. Don't need to sign in, but you hold Office Lens with the camera of your device over the text you want, and it will either capture it, and I use it instead of having a visualizer at the front of the classroom. I just go around with a tablet device around the classroom, and I hold Office Lens over the top, and I'll mirror my device to the front of the classroom, or I'll capture it and then I will put it in OneNote and I'll annotate over the top to celebrate achievement, to share good practice, to raise standards across the class, or just make someone really proud of what they've done that day. In Office Lens has many uses, so I'd urge you to go and find it. So here's an example where we go over a textbook, we scan the textbook, simple as processing it in. You've got all the options of where to send it. You can send it to your OneDrive, or you can send the text into Immersive Reader. And it will read it to you, but you can change all of those options that we had in the full-blown desktop software. So again, you could have tablet devices for your pupils in the class to hold over the textbook, and then they could put it into Immersive Reader via Office Lens, and then they can have it in their languages, they can have whichever learning needs supported, and they can also, and as an example of Translator, they could also then send it to the OneNote, and they could have a copy of it in their own language. Although the book was originally in English, they could have a copy of it printed onto their OneNote, and then they could write around that or annotate around that if you've got stylus devices, or just type on a keyboard if they want to put a text box in, or use the dictate tool to include something there as well. Excuse me. So there's a lot of scope with using Office Lens, and as we said, it's free, doesn't cost anything. All the functions that you can use are all there, are free, and you can send it to anywhere you like on the menu as well. So Office Lens itself is something that's a good thing to pair with Immersive Reader. Immersive Reader tends to be the item that most people feel really comfortable going in and picking up, and regardless of your technology skills, it tends to be an item that you can just install and go and find in your different programs. Office Lens, really quick and easy to roll out. And again, once people have had a go with it, they tend to find also that that is something that's very non-threatening, but also has huge potential. I've used that as well with parents, and they've got something they couldn't read. Maybe they've brought it into school and they're trying to understand something that's been sent from the local authority in the UK, or a letter they've been had. I show them Office Lens and they can hold it over the letter, and all of a sudden the letter can be translated into their own language. And I've strengthened the bonds with my parents that I'm working with as well. So there's huge potential there with just that Office Lens app. Another area to improve accessibility is to use PowerPoint Live. Now, PowerPoint Live is available in Office 2019 and also Office 2021 if you use an old style Office that you install on your computer, or it's also available in Office 365. Anything earlier than Office 2019, and I'm sorry, PowerPoint Live is not available there, and you'll need to update your software before you can take advantage. But what you can have are subtitles and slides underneath. So I'm going to break out again from the presentation. I'm going to take you over and show you what PowerPoint Live looks like in real time. PowerPoint Live is something that's very, very easy to do. And all you need to do is take a slide that you've already prepared. And with that slide you've already prepared, what you can do is just apply PowerPoint live when you present. My slide is just syncing up now, I think. Just having a long old think about it. There we go. So if I jump out of my Teams there and I go across to here, I've got a fictional PowerPoint presentation. Here is present live. Now, if you press the little arrow next to present live, what you can do is you can decide whether you are going to present to people that are only in your organization or school, or anyone. So you might use this on an open evening, and you might have some parents that can't join you for a face-to-face meeting or come to the hall, so therefore you're broadcasting at the same time. Or you may use this when you are doing a lesson, you haven't got everyone in the same school, maybe you've got split campus and so forth. You can have subtitles on as well. So the subtitles I'll show you. So you can choose your spoken language, and I'm speaking in UK English. And you can also choose your subtitle language. And today I've chosen English as my subtitles, but you could have anything. You can have it below the slide. You can have it so it overlaps. And in the bottom here, you've got some audio settings that you can mess around with where the microphone is that you're using. So if you plug in things like external microphones, you can have that in there as well. And then on the present live, you say, well, in school or outside anyone. And again, you've got more audio settings, and you simply just press the present live button. What it will do is it will generate a QR code if you're working and you're looking at this from where you are. If you hold your phone up, if you've got one and scan the QR code, you'd be able to join this session. You can also use that technology in class if you've got camera enabled devices. Sometimes I print these out in advance and pop them around the classroom so that we don't have a huddle, but equally you can put it on the board, or you could put a code in Teams if you've got a class team, copy it and put it in. So once you've got that, it's moving through, and then you can go into the slides. So here you can say hello, and I'm going to be presenting, and what you will get on your side are the subtitles coming up underneath. Now I think I just left the settings for in this organization, so if you did just scan it, apologies you weren't able to join, but if I had to change that to anyone, it'll be coming up with the subtitles. So you can come out of it and you can leave it running and resume the session at any point. Or what you can do is you can go through and you can change it so that you ended the session at any point. And at any point you could come back in and you say, look, oh, actually, I want them overlaid or I want them below. And you go back in and press resume, and then all of a sudden you can carry on with it there. So I'm just going to come out of that. I'm going to end that session. Something else that's really useful as far as not so much accessibility, but developing independence and understanding how to make things accessible for others is rehearsing. Now, the amount of times I've listened to pupils or students I'm working with practicing a presentation, and sometimes it's really hard to find the time to go round, or they just don't get a chance. So if you had a slide here, and I've got one on the staff meeting, what you could do is use Rehearse with Coach. All of these are on the slideshow tab of the web version of PowerPoint. If you're looking at where I got that from, sorry, I should have showed you that earlier. You just go to the app launcher and go to PowerPoint there, or all apps there, and then you'll just need to open up one of the PowerPoint presentations you were using. But you can rehearse with Coach, and what that will do is it will give you some pointers about how you're getting on. So you can even have it to analyze body language through the camera, and whether you are facing the audience, whether you're looking like you are really uptight and you're feeling a bit tense about it, or you can leave body language off. But I'm just going to go without body language at the moment. So Rehearse with Coach, it will go in, and then in the corner it will say start rehearsing. And at the end, I do want to have feedback, but I want also real-time feedback, and it tells me my mic is ready. You might need to give access to the mic on your laptop, otherwise this feature may not work. But we go to start rehearsing. Welcome to today's staff meeting. It's really nice to see so many of you here. Today, we've got to get through quite a bit, so I'm going to speak really fast. We've got policies and maybe we're going to do some other bits, but I'm not quite sure, so we'll see what's happening. In the policies, we're going to have an annual review, and then we're going to have to get quickly because we've got to get through new policies. And then the next meeting, we've got loads to get through, loads to do, and quite a bit to understand about staff well-being coming up in the summer. And then we'll look at next academic year. And all the time, I've got the prompts in the corner, and it tells me about the fillers I'm using. Once I've finished, I can come out, And what I will get is a report that tells me exactly how I got on. So it says I presented 40 seconds, I've given it 4 slides, it gives me my average speed over time, my target monotone is going down, it tells me about language I could try using. But all of this might make a presentation more accessible if someone is a member of staff presenting, or if you've got a pupil or a student presenting as well. So that is using Presenter Coach in PowerPoint, but you need to make sure you've got the latest software installed on your computer. So as I said, that's Office 2019, Office 2021. If you've got the standalone Office package, or from your Office 365, you download Office and install it, or you use the online Office, and that will allow you to then get to both of those features, Present Live. You can use Present Live in conjunction with another piece of software that will show you later on in this session. And it's really useful, again, for bridging the language gap and allowing you to reach students or parents where languages are an issue, but you don't necessarily understand the language that is native to them or their first language. And it will then allow you to hand an olive branch out and say, look, I am trying to connect with you here. I'm trying to show you what we're doing. Something else that's in Windows 10 and Windows 11, if you went to the Start button in Windows 10 or the main dock in Windows 11 in the middle and click so that you get the Start menu that comes up, on the left-hand side looks like a gear or a cog. If you open that up, you've got various accessibility options. One is typing, so you can have things like suggestions on, so it suggests words, and you can see there the spell check pops up just above the elephant's head. It's quite small in this example, but you've got a grey box, and where there's a word that's spelled incorrectly, the dictionary automatically prompts. There were 75 languages in October 2018. They haven't added too many more since, but there are more coming. You can also enable things like dictate in Word from there. You can use high contrast so that you're not just using black text, white background. You might have black background or green or yellow text so that it improves visibility. So there's an awful lot that you can change in Windows in M365. Some of that may be restricted by your organization, so it's worth trialing that, particularly in a pupil or a student login, before you go across and use it in a lesson, and maybe you get a whole class saying, although you've told me about this, I can't do this, or I can't use that, and get that turned on by IT support ahead of you doing anything with them in a lesson setting. The next area to move into is maths, and maths has quite a good set of tools available to you. So there's a math solver tool. It's in OneNote. It's also available on the internet as a program. But what you can do is you can use it for maths from the very basic Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, right the way through up to Key Stage 4 as the UK curriculum is, and it's transferable across whichever curriculum you use in the world. And the maths tool could be used by you, but it could also be used by the pupils or the students you're working with. So again, I'll jump over to the web browser and I'll show you the maths tool over there, and we'll go back over to where I've left my PowerPoint. If you want to, you can install the maths tool, and it's available on iOS or iPadOS. If you've got Apple devices, it's also available on Android on the Google Play Store if you've got Android tablets. But what you can do is you could type a very simple problem in here, and away it will go, and it will give you what the answer is with examples. Now I've picked quite a secondary orientated example there, but it will give you some suggestions. Now that can be paired right back by using it with OneNote in the classroom. So if I jumped back over and I went and found my maths, it might be in here. I've been doing some addition and subtraction. So I've used my stylus, I've written on my board, but what I could do is I could highlight or lasso that text I've written on the board, and it will be all taken in. And then I can go to draw, and in here I've got the maths tool, the maths solver tool that I've spoken about. If I click it, the text I've highlighted is then brought in. Well, it's picked up that I've got a minus there instead of a plus. So let me just try highlighting that again, or you can use the fix tool. Let's see if we can get that in there. And we'll click that again. It probably will pick it up this time. Yeah, it has picked up the plus. Or you can use the fix it tool. It does exactly the same thing, but I usually try highlighting first. Once you've got that sorted, what you can do yourself is use it to check something, but I normally teach pupils where this is. I can have it inked to maths, so I can take the inked version and replace my handwriting with a typed version. But what I could do is I could find or evaluate what the answer is. So it might say the answer is 8. Well, that's great, but how on earth do I get there? All it tells me if I'm wrong or right. And I know there are many mathematical ways of getting to an answer, but what we could do is use this to develop independence in the pupils we're working with. So here we go. There's the Immersive Reader icon again, so I can have that read to me, but it gives me one suggested route of how I might have got to the answer of 8. You could on the page say, if after using the maths tool you still don't know, go and visit this website, and you could have a hyperlink to click. There's various things there. But the other beauty in the maths tool is that you could say, look, I'm going to evaluate, and then I want to generate a practice quiz. So you can press generate quiz. And what that will do is it will open up a window in the middle, and mine looks like it's going to play up to date, but you choose how many questions you want. And then based on the calculation that you've got above, it will then allow you to generate some more questions in a similar vein. Again, there's Immersive Reader in forms, but it's taken the premise of what I'm doing with the plus or the addition and subtraction operations with the other 3 digits. Got 4 possible options. They can go through as pupils and answer that, press submit, and then use your links in your OneNote to go off and find other learning, or go and use the evaluation tool in Math Solver to try and work out why they got those answers wrong. But you haven't had to generate that. The software can generate that, and you can either do that yourself in advance and you can distribute this page in OneNote, or you can get them to be independent in looking at the calculation and then using forms to generate their own. There's lots of scope there with the maths tool, but as I've said, it's available as a website on its own. If you go to mathsolver.microsoft.com, or inside of programs such as OneNote, and OneNote tends to be the one where it's most useful because you can ink around it as well as using it on a board as a member of staff or pupils using it. And if you've typed, you can still highlight or lasso type text, and Math Solver will work at the same time. So there's a lot of options in there to play around with. It goes, as I've said, from the very, very straightforwards through to the quite complex. So don't worry if it's something that you feel at the moment is one step too far. You can always go and try it afterwards. We'll jump back over, and I realized I skipped something when I showed you PowerPoint Live, and that was just exactly how to show those titles if I was a pupil, and I've closed that browser window. So I'll show you what I've got in the slide, just to jump back and show that. Slightly out of order, apologies, but it's important to see it. So if I was using the PowerPoint Live feature, on the right hand side in the screenshot, I've got a desktop computer, I've got a tablet device on the very right, or on the left of there, I've got a mobile phone. So you scan that QR code, and then as I was teaching and presenting as a member of staff, PowerPoint Live, along with the piece of software I'm going to show you next, would give you those subtitles underneath. So I'm busy talking away in English, but I might have one pupil to the left of me who's getting it in Spanish on screen, and it's not just necessarily coming up as writing, you can have it read to them at the same time. I might have another pupil there that's getting it in Polish, and another pupil getting it in Romanian. It doesn't matter. I can use PowerPoint and Present Live to do that. You can select your languages and change them around whatever you like. So here is Spanish on this example, and what you can also get are the slides there in thumbnail. You can still get the original slides by sharing them in a team, or just giving a printout if you want to do it an old-fashioned way. And then at the end, what you can do is get some feedback. So you can get feedback from your pupils, and they can rate you on various aspects of your lesson or your presentation. And the colleagues can do that as well if you decide to use it, and also parents. But it allows direct feedback back to you, and you get that at the end of the session, and it's something for you to reflect upon and work on with the audience. So that is PowerPoint Live. But to get that all working, using the PowerPoint Present Live is one half of it. The other half is using what I'm also using here in Microsoft Teams, is using the live captions. And the live captions depend upon you using a piece of translator software that's free in Microsoft. Now, live captions is available in OneNote as well as PowerPoint. It's not limited to PowerPoint, so don't think you just have to do PowerPoint presentations, but you need to use the translator app. Translator app could be added into Office 365, so it's an app in the app launcher, but it can also be an app in its own right. I'll show you that next. It's also an app that you can install on phones and tablets, so that if you've got tablet devices or laptops, you can have the pupil sat at the desk, as you've said, seeing the present live in PowerPoint or seeing the subtitles in OneNote, and them using Translator as the vehicle for that. I think it's a good point there just to jump out and go across. And this is one of the final things we're going to look at in today's session. But Translator, I've used whether it's having, again, meetings with parents and they've arrived, and maybe the person who normally interprets for them isn't available today, or the child that's in school who's picked up enough English helps the parent with the language, or maybe it's that they just couldn't be present at the meeting, so therefore we use the tools that we've got, and Translator is a great tool for that. So if I shut down a few of the tabs that I've got here, Translator you can get to by going to translator.microsoft.com. You'll come to a website like this, and you get a choice when you first arrive. You can either join a conversation as somebody coming in who needs to receive information, or you can be the person starting the conversation. But if you're going to start a conversation, you've got to log in. If you're joining a conversation, then there's a code that's generated by the person who started the conversation. This is what gives you access to those subtitles and present live in PowerPoint, but also the subtitles in OneNote. You pop in the code that you've been given, you pop in your name so the person who's seeing you joining their conversation knows who you are. You decide your language so that you get your subtitles in your correct language, and then it's as simple as press join the conversation. What it looks like from my side, because I'm more than likely going to be initiating the conversation, I would sign in with my Microsoft account. So in it would go, and what I'm going to do is say, because I'm already signed in with Office 365, it's detected it, but if you weren't, you need to log in with your email address, which is your Office 365 account, your password. You put your name in, so I'm in there. My language is English, and I'm going to start the conversation. This will then start the conversation, and all the heavy lifting and computing is done on Microsoft's end. You'll see a little prompt as to what to do, and after a few times you won't need that prompt, so you can press the cross, but it talks you through what to do as the other person to get them into the conversation. And then you need to say, well, have you got your mic button working? It's worth testing it, so I need to allow that in my browser. I'm going to press continue, and I can have it so that the mic always stays on, or that I mute others. If you don't want people talking over you, maybe you're presenting a lot or you're using this with students, you can mute others. But if you're having a two-way conversation with someone, don't. I'm going to leave my mic on just so that you can see this appearing. So here it's listening, and everything I'm saying is now appearing on the screen. So if I stop or pause, it will then start a new line for me, and it knows when I've started a new sentence. And it's always me talking. If the other person was talking back and maybe they're speaking in French, I would hear them speaking in French, but what Translator would do is turn their written subtitles into English for me. And anytime I want to stop this process, I just press the green microphone at the bottom and it will pause the capture. If you want to get people into the conversation, you can get them to scan the QR code, or you can give them the conversation code. And where we looked at the join code box, that's exactly where you pop that code in, or scan that with your phone. It will open up a web page, whatever phone you're using or tablet device, and it will take you straight to it. It tells me that I'm the person hosting it. If I want to, I can change my language or my name there, and I can clear all messages from the conversation so that if I wanted to get rid of them, I can. Over here, the mic stays on, was turned off at the moment because I muted it. You can have profanity filters so that if somebody uses naughty or rude words, they don't appear on screen. You can also lock the conversation so people can't come in and edit the conversation. At the end, what you can do is get a transcript out, and you can also have partial messages appear on screen, or you can take out the partial messages. So if you needed to at the end of this to have a record of a conversation with someone or a parent, you can get the transcript out and you could both have a copy of that to understand what has been discussed in the meeting, or if you're having that with a pupil as well. So Microsoft Translator can work on its own, as you're seeing here. But what it also does is it facilitates the subtitles and present live, but also the subtitles in OneNote. So there's a lot of scope there for using that. And when you've finished, all you do is you exit the conversation at the top there, and that's where you get to download your transcript, leave the conversation, and it will take you right back to the join conversation over there, or the start conversation there, and in we go and we use it again. So that is an app that can be installed, but it works quite happily with an internet connection out of a web browser, and you can see there real time. At the moment I'm somewhere with a pretty slow internet connection, and it's not having a lot of trouble in managing that for me. So there's another way there that you can use an accessibility tool to just bring people in and get them involved. I am going to jump back over before we come to the end of the meeting and just pull everything together for you today. I'm also going to have a look while we're doing that if there's any questions that have gone into the chat. Nothing in the chat at the moment. Do feel free to ask questions if you want to, or if, as I said, if you've used any of these tools and you want to give us some insight into how you've used them, please do pop that into the chat as well. It's really useful for me to find out how people are doing things in class and in schools. So that is Translator live. Now the conversations, as I said, are all accessible from translator.microsoft.com, and it's a web app as well as an installed app. We can get the experience across any device: tablet, laptop, desktop computer, and mobile phone. There's 10 speech languages and 63 text languages, and they're adding to them all the time. So you can always go in and find another language. If you've got a language that you need, and if you've got something you need that's missing as a feature from any of these accessibility tools, do use the feedback button. There are real human beings on the development teams behind this, and often some of the best features have come through people badgering Microsoft for a certain tool to be amended or the way something works to be updated. So do feel free to ask. The links for what we've done today are all available on Microsoft Learn Education Center, and that's something you can go and access. This session is part of an ongoing set of sessions from Turn It On, and you can always find more by going to www.turniton.co.uk/events. Now, I did promise you a code to redeem in the Microsoft Learn Education Center, and that code is on screen now. I'll also in a little bit post it into the chat for you. If you want to know how to do that, you need to go to the Microsoft Learn Education Center and sign in. You can sign in with your Office 365 account. Once you're signed in, if you click your profile in the top right-hand corner, in the middle of your achievements screen, where I've got that yellow circle, there's some blue writing with a hyperlink where you can go to redeem that code. You'll get a pop-up box, and then all you simply do is type that code in. The code itself, as I said, I'm going to pop into the chat for you now. So if you want to copy and paste that rather than anything else, in it goes. But that will also give you the custom training and the courses and the resource materials we've used today. So there's loads to get stuck into. As with any of the training sessions, pick the one thing that you think is most relevant to you, thing you find friendliest or you know is going to have the greatest impact with either the pupils or the students you work with or the staff that you work with, and just introduce it, perfect it, try it, and then move on to the next thing. There's no such thing as going too fast or too slow. It's what's right for you. It's what's right for going on in the organization you work with, and just pick it off a little bit at a time. I can see some questions there. So Immersive Reader use a lot. Good to hear. You can see when they struggle to get essays in. I do find Immersive Reader is my go-to default accessibility tool because it can do so much to open up learning for anyone. The Math Solver and the Translate are the ones that people often go and try after training sessions such as this. Math Solver more with people in the STEM subjects in the UK, like the technology subjects or the math subjects. But it might be just doing some maths as a teacher. You want to get the pupils doing that rather than you. I can see a question there. Is Math Solver a standalone app or is it built into the Teams only? So the Math Solver is built into OneNote, class notebook. So you've got to use the class notebook version, which is in a class team. Or you can have OneNote class notebook as an individual app. It can open up as a tab on its own. or you can enable the OneNote class notebook features in OneNote that's installed on your Windows computer in Windows 10 or 11, or it does have that website as well. So the website you can get it from, if I go and grab the URL, I'll pop it into the chat for you as well. So you can have the Math Solver tool, but having the Math Solver tool on the website is something that I find less intuitive than using it inside of OneNote. I find it easier to ink, inscribe in OneNote class notebook and then deploy the Math Solver tool. And also that's what pupils have fed back to me as something they found. So there's the URL to get to the website version. There used to be a version that installed in Windows itself that you could get from the Microsoft Store, but it doesn't seem to be available currently. So I'm not quite sure what Microsoft are doing with that, and I have asked the question. Any other questions at all? I will also conclude the recording. So if you're watching the recording, it's been nice having you here. You can redeem the code. If you're still